Have you noticed something strange? For years, when the world wanted to hear Africa's voice, it usually came from one country, South Africa. It stood before the world's highest court, accusing Israel of violating human rights. It speaks for Africa at BRICS, at G20, as if it represents the whole continent. But something has changed quietly. African governments are asking a question that would have been unthinkable years ago. Should South Africa still speak for all of us? While Pretoria demands justice on a global stage, something very different happens at home. Africans are chased from hospitals, migrants are haunted by organized groups. Some South African citizens are mistaken for foreigners because of how they look, their names, the language they speak. You see, this story isn't simply just about migration. It's a story about moral authority and whether a country can keep leading Africa while millions of Africans no longer feel welcome inside its borders. By the end, you are going to see why Ghana, Nigeria, and even leaders inside South Africa are challenging an idea that existed for decades, that South Africa automatically speaks for Africa. Let's start with the moment that everything began to change. It started with a date, June 30th. Now, if you caught my last video, you know certainly about the coalition. You know about the rates, the door-to-door checks. I won't cover that again. Now, here is what I haven't shown you. They call it the Great Liberation March. Now, I'm not making that up. You see, liberation used to mean one thing for South Africa, and that's freedom from apartheid. Now it has changed. Liberation in South Africa now means a march telling fellow Africans to pack your bags and leave. The face of all this is Jacinta Gopesi Zuma, leader of March and March. Now, one line of hers keeps following her everywhere. Foreigners are the new colonizers. Now think about the weight of that word, colonizer. You don't throw that anyhow carelessly in a country that spent decades fighting for that label to be taken off the country. She's putting foreigners in the same box as the people who once ruled by force. You see, at first, this didn't make sense to me. If this is really just spontaneous anger from frustrated, unemployed people, why does it look this organized? Now, researchers who mapped the hospital blockades found something very specific. You see, before these people do these blockades in hospitals, they announce in advance. They announce specific clinics, they announce specific dates, specific zones. That's not a mob, that's a schedule. You see, one migrant inside that research said something that I haven't been able to shake. He said, as soon as they see our names, they block us. Not our papers, they block our names. South Africa's constitution guarantees healthcare to everyone inside its borders. That is documented or not. So a clinic gate turning someone away is a private citizen overruling the constitution with a clipboard. Now, here is where the software story flips. There is a common line in South Africa that foreigners take our jobs, they steal our jobs. Foreigners drain our services. Foreigners don't pay tax. Now, fact checkers found out that South Africa isn't even on the top 20 of Africa's 54 countries for hosting refugees. Now, what does that mean? Africa has 54 countries. South Africa isn't even on the top 20 of African countries hosting other African refugees. Yet, when this thing started, some of us actually thought that the refugee situation in South Africa is crazy. There are other African countries, more than 20 of them, that are supporting other Africans from other African countries without any complaint. And these countries are well poorer than South Africa. So the spirit of Ubuntu still really has a lot of gap to occupy in South Africa. You see, the more I looked into this thing, the stranger everything got. Jacinta also said on camera,
during apartheid, not even one of those African countries came to fight with black people.
It's a powerful line. It's also not true. Nigeria cut 2% of its civil servants' salaries for years and sent that money to the anti-apartheid struggle. The total contribution was about $61 billion with a very fat B. Money that could have built roads and hospitals at home. Instead, it went towards ending a system Nigerians never lived under. There is a TV interview where journalist Ireti sits Jacinta down and walks through Nigeria's receipts, point by point. Watch her face. That's a myth running into a receipt. My honest read when someone says Africa didn't help, what I actually hear is a country trying to forget a debt. Not because the debt doesn't exist, because remembering it makes the present harder to live with. There is an old saying that fits better than any statistic. When a blind man opens his eyes after years of blindness, the first thing he does is throw away the stick that guided him. A lot of hands were on that stick. Nigeria's, Ghana's, Tanzania's, Zambia's. Now, their citizens are chased through Johannesburg streets. And this connects to something you know already, Ghana's request to the African Union, Nigeria's warnings to its own citizens. I covered both last time, I won't repeat them, but here is what matters more than the facts. Ghana and Nigeria aren't only protecting their citizens, they are telling every African country watching that South Africa's moral credit isn't unlimited and it is being spent faster than it's been earned. Now imagine you're a diplomat in Accra watching this, asking yourself why you are letting this country speak for you in rooms you don't get invited to. You already know about the International Court of Justice case from the top. Now the uncomfortable truth is that case earned real respect, and I am not taking that away. But if you can find the moral clarity to accuse another government of atrocities halfway across the planet, why does that clarity vanish when your own people watch migrants get run out of clinics down the road from your parliament? The International Commission of Jurists called on South Africa to act urgently against xenophobia and vigilante violence, and to uphold the same human rights standards it asked from everyone else. That's an international legal body saying it, not a rival politician. You see, moral authority in geopolitics is currency. It's why a country gets a seat at the UN, a seat inside BRICS, a seat at the table when African interests are decided by people who aren't African. And here is the part nobody really talks about. China doesn't really need South Africa at the expense of the rest of Africa. It needs Africa's 54 votes at the UN. If the rest of Africa ever puts South Africa aside, China picks the continent every single time. Meanwhile, the US has been quietly building a refugee pathway for white Afrikaners, framed around persecution, now frame both headlines at once. African migrants told to leave by a deadline. A different group, same country, claiming to leave too, for different reasons, getting the international spotlight. Now remember that I told you that some leaders inside South Africa are pushing back to not every South African is in this light we just described. And here is one of them, Limpopo's premier, Dr. Fofi Ramatuba. She publicly told March and March that her province has nothing to do with them. Her message roughly, Limpopo manages its own affairs within the law and won't tolerate anything that threatens peace or people's livelihoods. That's not a foreign government pushing back. This is not Nigeria, it's not Ghana, it's not the UN or international community. That's a sitting South African premier drawing a line. And this is exactly what I meant about South Africans being mistaken for foreigners. There is an ethnic group inside South Africa, the Vatsonga, also called Machangani, who kept getting stopped by March and March protesters because of how they sound, how they look, or their surname. They marched to the Human Rights Commission, and some people have alleged that the mistaken identity has already cost lives. Now think about what that means. A movement created on protecting real South Africans can't reliably tell who is a real South African. It was never really about papers. It was how African you sound. Now, why Limpopo drew that line on other fronts open up, South Africa's own Human Rights Commission filed a case against Jacinta and others, accusing them of inciting xenophobic violence. Now, to be clear, that's an allegation moving through the courts, not a conviction. Nothing has been proven yet. Now, sit with what it means that her own country's human rights body felt it had to take that step. Okay, let's put everything on the table. South Africa stands on the world's highest court, demanding accountability for atrocities carried out thousands of kilometers away from South Africa. At home, vigilante groups control who gets into a hospital. Ghana takes the complaint to the African Union. Nigeria reminds South Africa that freedom actually costs. A sitting premier tells the movement to stay out of her province. South Africans get mistaken for the exact foreigners they are marching against. That's a country whose actions at home no longer matches the voice it uses abroad. That's the exact moment that African leaders started asking quietly at first whether South Africa should continue holding the microphone for the continent. Not out of spite, out of a simple, fair question. Can you speak for a family you are currently failing to protect? Now, I don't think this is really about one movement, one activist, or even one country. It's about what the continent does when it has to decide in real time what solidarity means once it costs something. Now, South Africa has three paths here. 1. Clean down Xenophobia and rebuild the trust it's spending down. Keep talking loudly abroad while the gap at home keeps widening. Or 3. The continent builds something it has never had, a shared voice where Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya and Egypt aren't waiting on one capital to speak for all 54 countries. Maybe the real story isn't that South Africa is losing its voice. Maybe the real story is that Africa is learning that it never needed just one voice. So tell me, what will real Pan-African solidarity actually look like here in practice, not just in speeches? And who steps up to build it? I'll be reading. Let's figure this out together. Now, before you go, one more thing. This channel just crossed 500,000 of you for something built entirely around Pan-African stories. Stories most channels won't touch. That number means a lot to me. Thank you for trusting me with your attention on things that actually matter to this continent. Let's keep building this continent together, one step at a time. If you haven't liked the video, I don't know why. If you haven't subscribed, I don't know what's stopping you. See you in my next video.